Chapter 13. I meet Winnie's evil twin brother, the Whirlpool. If y'all are going to the water, you stay away from Collier's Landing. A couple of years ago, Miss Thomas's little boy, Jimmy, got caught up in some kind of whirlpool down there, and they didn't find the poor soul's body for 3 days. I'd only have listened to what Grandma Sands had said, and now me and Joey and Byron were standing at a sign with arrows that pointed in 2 directions. The one pointing to the left said, "Public swimming," and the other one pointing to the right looked like it had been on the post for 1,000,000 years, but if you got close to it, you could read, "Warning, no trespassing, no swimming, no public entry. Signed, Joe Collier." "Oh, man, Collier's Landing," I said. "Let's go." I knew Joey wouldn't like this, but I figured me and Vi could talk her into coming and not snitching. Joey said, "Kenny, you heard Grandma Sands tell about that little boy getting lost in the water? What was that thing called that she said got him?" Daddy Cool said, "Didn't you hear what she said, Joey? She said he got caught by the Whirlpool." "Is that a fish?" Joey asked. You know who Winnie the Pooh is, don't you?" Me and Joey both nodded. "Well?" "The Whirlpool is Winnie's evil twin brother. Don't no one ever write about him, 'cause they don't want to scare y'all's kids. What he does is hide underwater and snatch stupid kids down with him." Bi figured that dumb story was enough to scare me off, and he started walking in the other direction of public swimming. "If Kenny wants to take his stupid little behind down there and get snatched, let him." Vi grabs Joey's hand and started pulling her along with him, but she skidded her feet in the dirt. "But Byron, what if the Whirlpool comes down to where we're going? Can't he swim down there and get people too?" "Nah, Joey, the Whirlpool don't come in public beaches. He just grab folks that are too stingy to let peons come on their land, like this Collier guy." Who could understand Byron? Here was another chance for a fantastic adventure, and he was going in the wrong direction. Something was wrong with him. If he was in Flint, and you told him not to do something, he'd go right out and do it. But now, he was acting real dull and square. Maybe it was the heat. Maybe, just like it had sucked all the energy out of me, it had sucked all the meanness and fun out of Byron. "What you gonna do, punk?" Byron shouted over his shoulder. Joey yelled, "Come on, Kenny! You know what Grandma Sands said." I couldn't believe it. I really wanted to go see where some kid drowned, and now Bi was choosing this time to listen to what a grown-up told him. "Ah, man, I'm going to Collier's Landing." Byron shrugged. "Have fun." I shouted, "What's wrong with you? When are you going to start acting like you normally do? What would Buphead say if he saw you acting like this?" Byron flipped me the double middle fingers and another finger sign I never seen before, and said, "Just keep your stupid little butt out of the water." "Forget you. I'm going." They kept walking. "I'm not playing." Joey waved. "I'm going to Collier's Landing." They were gone. I looked in the direction that the warning sign was pointing and started to get a little nervous. I turned and started to follow Joey and Byron, but I finally decided I really was going to Collier's Landing. Maybe Byron was getting sick of having some fantastic adventures, but I figured I was getting old enough to have some myself. "You're a couple of jive squares," I shouted, then walked off the way the warning sign pointed. Byron must have thought I was stupid. Who ever heard of something called the Whirlpool? I wasn't sure what the lie was, but I knew Byron had made that junk up. Besides, if Winnie the Pooh had an evil twin brother, it seemed like I would have read about it somewhere. Some of the time, it was kind of hard to understand what Grandma Sands was saying, but I couldn't remember her saying anything about a whirlpool. And if there really was something that snatched kids into the water, Mama and Dad wouldn't let us come down here, would they? I knew all that stuff, but I was still kind of nervous when I followed the little trail that went through a bunch of bushes and led to the water. I forgot all about Byron's lies as soon as I saw the water. Kyer's landing was great. The water was dark, dark blue, and best of all, it was about 100 degrees cool. Joe Kyer had put up another sign on a giant tree. Warning, danger, no swimming. 6 lives been lost here, bad drop-off. Sign, Joe Kyer. 6? Grandma Sands had said 1 little boy drowned here, not 6. I felt dumb, but I looked real hard at the water to see if the whirlpool was hiding there. I even looked up and down the shore to see if there was any strange footprints on the ground. I was kind of worried because this sign looked a lot fresher than the first one. I kept waiting for Bi to jump out of the bushes and say something like, "Aha, you little dope, I got you. I made you look for a whirlpool." But everything was real calm and quiet. The water didn't even look like it was moving, but like it was breathing, going up and down, and it made a sound like the wind blowing through big trees in Flint. I walked right to the edge of the water and still didn't see anything strange. So I figured if there really was anything dangerous, Byron would have followed me here and stopped me from getting hurt. Wouldn't he? Then a bell went off in my head. I knew Joe Kyer put that sign up because he didn't want to share his lake with anyone. The whirlpool was some made-up garbage. There's one good thing about getting in trouble. It seems like you do it in steps. It seems like you don't just end up in trouble, but you kind of ease yourself into it. It also seems like the worse the trouble is that you get into, the more steps it takes to get there. Sort of like you're getting a bunch of little warnings on the way. Sort of like if you really wanted to, you could turn around. The first warning I should have listened to was when Daddy Cool and Joey followed the arrow to the left, and I went to the right. The second warning came when I decided to wade in the water, and the knots wouldn't come out of my tennis shoe laces, and I had to pull and tug the shoes off with the laces still tied. After that, it's kind of hard to count how many warnings I got, because with the trouble I ended up in, I must have had a zillion of them. Step by step, I kept easing into trouble until I finally was standing in the lake with the water up to my knees. I'd gone into the water because there were a bunch of little stupid-looking, slow-moving fish right near the shore, and I thought I might be able to catch some of them and make them pets. I wasn't afraid because I figured if there was a real whirlpool and he was in the area, those little fish wouldn't be hanging around. Alabama fish were a lot friendlier and a lot trickier than Michigan ones. I bent over and stuck my hand in the water and tried to grab a couple, but they kept slipping away like they were covered with soap. They were right there and I couldn't grab them. They didn't even act like they were afraid of me. They just kept swimming around my legs, even bumping their faces into me, like they were trying to kiss me. It seemed like they wanted me to catch them and take them back to Flint. After missing about 100 times, I stood up and saw the reason the fish wouldn't go out in deeper water. There was a big green turtle about the size of a football, cruising back and forth in the deep water, and he looked just as slow and stupid as the fish did. Wow! Who wouldn't want to have a fish for a pet when you could have a turtle? I took a few more steps out, and the cool blue water came all the way up to my arms. Getting cool all of a sudden, like this, made me bug my eyes and suck in my breath. I made a quick grab at the stupid turtle, and zoom! He flapped his arms once and disappeared into deeper water. That quick grab was my last step. Boom! All of a sudden, I was in big, big trouble. The rocky ground under my feet started sliding away from the shore. I didn't get nervous because I knew I could flap my arms around like the turtle and get back to dirt. I looked up and saw the shore was still real close. I flapped my arms and nothing happened. I stayed in the same spot. Then the rocks under my feet were gone, and I was kicking in water with the tips of my toes. I could still brush some of the rocks, but they were all slipping and sliding away from shore. I pushed away to try to swim back, and my head bobbed under the water. All the sound and light from Alabama disappeared because my eyes automatically shut, and it seemed like my ears were stuffed with cotton. I got a mouthful of water, but my head came right back up. I laughed because I was spitting and patooing about a mile a minute when my head popped out of the water. But the laughing stopped real quick when I tried swimming again, and my head went back under. That's when I got really scared. I'd seen enough cartoons to know that when your head goes down 3 times, it doesn't ever come back again. I knew if I went down one more time, I was dead as a donut. My eyes looked at the shore where my shoes were sitting safe on some rocks. "Oh, man," I said to myself. "I wish I had a magic lamp so I could have the genie make me be where those shoes are, and they could be where I am." The last thing I thought about before I found out that Grandma Sands and Byron and Joe Collier weren't lying at all. That was the last thing I thought about before I found out that the whirlpool was real and big and mean and horrible, and that he didn't care at all about dragging kids out into the water. I had never ever been this scared in my life. I hollered out, "Mama!" My arms were punching the water like it was a person, and my legs were going a mile a minute to try to get back to the shore. But now even my toes couldn't find anything to touch. "Okay, Kenny," I said to myself. "You know you're going to be all right. You just get real calm and swim back to the land. When you count to 3, just go back to your shoes." I stopped kicking for a second and said, 1, 2, 3. Then I gave my arms one more flap to go back to shore, and down I went again. My head went under for the 3rd time, and I knew I'd never come back up again. Going down 3 times like this is just like waking up and finding yourself tied to a tree with someone saying, "Ready, aim, fire." That's when he came swimming real slow out of the deep. And even though my head was under the dark water, I could see him coming right at me. He didn't look like he was related to Winnie the Pooh at all. He was big and gray, with hard, square-looking fingers. Where he should have had a face, there was nothing but dark gray. Where he should have had eyes, there was nothing but a darker, colder-looking color. He grabbed my leg and started pulling me down. I kicked and scratched at him, but he was too strong. It seemed like he didn't even feel my punches. My head felt like it was going to explode. I didn't think I could hold my breath for another second. I was feeling real scared and dizzy from holding my breath this long. Then suddenly, I could see that there was someone else in the water, and the whirlpool was pulling me right toward them. It was a little girl, and she had on a real pretty blue dress and big yellow wings and something tied around her head. When the whirlpool pulled me closer, I could see that it was a little angel. And wait a minute, it was Joetta, looking just like the angel Mrs. Davidson had given her. Joey had wings and a halo. Her face was real calm too, but she was pointing straight up, like there was something important I had to look at. This angel that looked like Joey was telling me I had to swim up one more time. This really scared me. I knew it wasn't a good sign when you started seeing angels, so I kicked and flapped my arms and started going toward the sky. My head came up, and I spit out a belly full of water and took a couple of good deep breaths. "Mama! Mama! Help me!" But the whirlpool wasn't through with me. I felt his hard hand go around my ankle, and I went down for the 4th time. I got pulled a little further and saw someone else in the water with me, kicking up a ton of dirt and scratching at the water like they were crazy. Byron! Man, the whirlpool is going to let me see my family one more time before I go. Go look at part 2